Hello, and welcome to the Top 10 Tips for Job Search Success brought to you by the Career Development Center as part of the Class of 2020 COVID-19 Job Search Series. Before we get started talking about the tips, I think it's important to cover some general and basic assumptions that we're going to make here. The first thing is it's important for everybody to understand that employment is achievable. There's a lot of grim news in the world right now, and I can totally understand how you could walk away with the assumption that it's not even worth trying, but that's simply not true. There are jobs available, remote jobs. The world is figuring out how to work remotely and to do so in a safe yet productive way, and we have to catch up with that curve. As employers figure this out, they are going to adjust, and more jobs will be posted for you to apply to. Frame of mind is going to be a game changer here. Again, and it's going to be based on what you're hearing from others and the general mood. An example of this would be if you hear or read that unemployment among college graduates is at 20%, for instance. That means that it's important for you to not just focus on that number. Rather, what does that mean? That means 2 out of 10 college graduates who's actively looking for a job is unemployed. What that actually means is 8 out of 10 are. 8 out of 10, 80%. So that's important for you to understand and keep that frame of mind as you move through this. Certainly, for sure, the only way to ensure unemployment is to not look for a job. So if you aren't engaged in something, then you will not get the results you're looking for. But if you want employment, you just have to recognize that the old rules do not apply. This will be different. It's not going to be that linear process that it's been for the last several years. However, there are tools that you can use and approaches that you can take that will get you to your goal. And that's some of what we're going to discuss today. So let's get into tip number 1. It will be very important for you to structure your time. Put structure around your Monday through Friday as if they're work hours. This will be good for you so that when you transition to work, you've been in this mode for a little while, but this is also when the people whose attention you're trying to attract, that's when they're working. So you need to absolutely schedule your time this way. You must use a calendar. If you've not used a calendar up to this point, now is the time to use it. Google Calendar is great. And you have to schedule events and meetings and put them on your calendar. That should be driving all of your activity as you go through this job search process. Be sure to block 1-hour increments for activities so that you avoid just this spraying technique where you step into email and doing a phone call and you're constantly changing direction. Don't do that to yourself. Give your brain time to get immersed in something, make some progress on something before you move on to the next activity. And here are some suggestions of the types of activities you are going to be engaged in. Email time. This is when you will respond to emails and send emails. Phone time. Make follow-up calls, return messages, etc. LinkedIn time. This is where this could actually extend beyond an hour. There is so much that you can do on LinkedIn. And what you're going to discover is that it's much more than just that front-facing profile that you see. The platform behind it has so much functionality for you, and this is where you will be spending a good share of your time. Knowledge update time. You need to be reading industry newsletters, catching up on what's going on in the news as well. And you also need to subscribe to newsletters so that they land in your inbox, that the highlights and the feeds land in your inbox. And then, of course, you will need time for online applications. As you know, sometimes they go very quickly. You can just upload your resume that you've tailored to the job, and other times you have to cut and paste, and that can be time consuming. So make sure that you are leaving enough time for each of these experiences. So my apologies for the blurriness of this slide, but I think if you just look at the visual, you can get a sense of this is how your day should look, okay? This person starts at 6 a.m. That might not be for everybody. However, that's when the knowledge update is happening. So if you go into your inbox, you're going to find them. If you go to specific sites that you frequent, this is where you can find things. This is also a quiet time. Most people will not be up. It's a solitary activity. LinkedIn time carries straight through to that. And then, of course, online applications. I personally love this setup because I think that if you really, within 3 hours, you could step away from your computer and say, wow, I've already accomplished a lot. I have more to do, but I know I've already really tackled some important things. Notice the phone time is at 9 o'clock. If people were in their offices and this were, quote, normal times, 8 o'clock would be a great time to try to catch people. But right now you have people who are working from home, trying to homeschool, just trying to, work amongst other people and perhaps sharing space. So I wouldn't burden people with calls before 8 o'clock during this time. Notice these meetings that have been scheduled. This is your time so that when you are talking to people, scheduling informational interviewing, catching up with folks, then if there's white space, you know that you have that time. And then finally, each day there's email time. This might change. This might be the same for you, but you want to resist checking your email every 20 minutes or so, because what you're going to do is start looking for a response from somebody. If it doesn't come, it's going to start to sort of get to you a little bit. And then finally, me time, and we're going to discuss that shortly. Tip number 2, set micro goals. Searching for a job is very much like going on a diet. Don't lose 10 pounds in a day and you don't get a job in one day. So you have to be engaged in activities that get you closer to that goal on a daily basis and try to be disciplined about it. Well, we're always going to have bad days. We have them at work. We have them when we're on a diet. We have them when we're training for something. Some days are great. Some are not so great, but it's the discipline that you apply to it. Set daily and weekly goals around job search activities. So an example would be connect with 5 new people on LinkedIn each week. And I would suggest that that's a goal in a few more weeks' time. I would say have a goal right now, for example, of connecting with 5 new people on LinkedIn each day. Okay, so you have to create that to-do list so that you know that you're making progress. You need to practice Cura Personalis. You know this through your time on Hawk Hill. It's so important, and it will be very nourishing for you. That me time, you time, it's specific time for your interests and well-being, but you do have to schedule it. There can be a tendency to feel like if that I have to be doing something around job search or I'm not using my time wisely, but you have to give to yourself in whatever form works for you. Exercise, it's important. And for those of you who are, fitness fanatics, you get this. If you're not into fitness as much, it doesn't have to be, becoming and, training for Ironman, but it's important for you to step away, take at least a 20-minute walk per day, get outside, change your point of view, get up from a seated position, really get up and exercise. It will change your perspective and give you the energy that you need for the rest of your day. Engage in mindful and grounding activity. For some, this might be formal meditation. For others, it's a walk in a wooded area. For others, it might be painting, coloring, reading a book, watching dogs play in the park, whatever it is that helps you get that center again so that you can go back to the hard work of looking for a job. Make sure to stay connected with friends and those in your support network. And I recognize that this has been very hard in this time. You can't have that face-to-face interaction that you'd like in person, but these people, your people, are going to be a lifeline for you, and it's really important that you stay connected. It's also important that you be a friend to others. Part of being so isolated is not really being able to help other people, and you're certainly accustomed to doing that as a hawk. Finally, keep a mental daily log of what you've achieved or a physical list of what you've achieved. Again, if you get to the end of the day and you still don't have a job, there can be a tendency to think, I'm not making progress here, but you are. So you need to remind yourself on a daily basis what you're doing. And that way also, when the loved ones in your life say, hey, what's going on with your job search? You're able to rattle off things on a daily basis. It's going to be important. Tip number 4, organize your research and activity. There's going to be a lot of time spent researching companies, looking at jobs, researching people. There's a lot of job search activity. And if you task yourself with trying to remember all of this, things are going to slip through the cracks, and details about it will keep you up at night. So on the Career Development Center's website, there's a job search organizer. It's an Excel spreadsheet, but I encourage you to download it, look at it, and see if you can use it as is, maybe adapt it to whatever your organizational system is. But you're going to be applying to jobs. You're going to be looking at websites. Record some of what you've learned in this job search organizer. What Zoom link are you using for that meeting? What URL did you use to apply for that job? What's the date you applied? Which version of your resume? Again, you're going to have a lot of balls in the air, so try to keep it organized. Jibber Jabber app is another option for you. It's free for a period, and you can try that. And the Trello app is also free and offers you color coding and just different ways to organize the job search activities that you're going to be engaged in. Okay, Tip number 5, ask for and accept help. Please, people want to help you, but you have to ask them, and then you have to accept that help. Tell your family and friends, your friends' families, alumni, SJU, faculty, and staff that you need some help. However, you need to be very specific in your requests. You can't just say to somebody, I'm looking for a job. That's way too broad. They can't help you with that. So you want to think about who you're talking to, what expertise do they have, what can you tap into. I am looking for to speak with 2 people who work in X industry or in X role, and I'm wondering if you know anybody that you could introduce me to. Okay, that's a very specific request and helps people help you. You have to feed your network your lines. People have to know what you're looking for. Again, if you tell your uncle you're looking for a job and he comes back with an opportunity that has nothing to do with your skill set, your interests, you couldn't possibly do that because you just don't have the skills at this moment to do that. He's going to feel all happy that he provided you that, and you're going to say, I'm sorry, that's not what I needed. So tell people what you're looking for so that they can actually keep their eyes and ears open for something specific and helpful to you. And then finally, always receive the help and follow up with the giver. If somebody suggested 2 people you might talk to, you have to go back to them to say, I spoke with them, they were really helpful, they gave me connection to somebody else, here's where I am with my search, thanks for your help. Okay, tip number 6, focus on skills versus your job title. Make sure that all of your profiles, documents, and conversations tell a consistent story about your best skills. The reason that you need to do this is because you might need to be expanding the network and your net and scope of your job search. So focus instead on skills. Share how you brought value applying those skills, okay? And maybe you've got 3 or 4 top skills, maybe you've got 10, but you have to be able to back all of them up with stories. What this does, it creates space for a discussion around openings using those skills versus specific positions. So if you ask somebody, do you have a job doing X? And the answer is no, there's no more conversation. However, if you say, do you have opportunity? I'm really skilled in the following areas and I'm looking for opportunities in this type of environment. Now the person is thinking, they're actually scanning sort of their entire network, trying to help you and trying to slot you into something that would be a good fit based on what you just said. And again, this does allow you to widen your scope, which you're probably going to have to do. That job that you've been, dreaming about for the last couple of years, that industry might have taken a hit, or maybe they're shifting resources into another area. So that exact job title might not be available, but certainly the skills that you have built over the years and the value that you can bring to an employer does not change. You might just have to shift and morph a little bit during this time. Tip number 7, network. You should be spending 70% of your time reconnecting with your network and building new connections. This job search time, especially in a recession, is job search is no longer linear. So you literally need to build a web, a network of people that you can try to, that you can rely on and who can be eyes and ears for you. You have to organize this. Let's go back to that job search organizer, and you must circle back to those who have helped you. This is where you will be spending time. It's time consuming, but it is definitely worthwhile, because your network is your lifeline to the hidden job market. There are going to be jobs that haven't been posted yet, and you want your network reaching out to you saying, I was just in a meeting, we're going to be expanding in this area, here's this job, I thought of your skills, what do you think? Okay, and then that person can refer you, and maybe that job won't even hit the boards because they've already filled it with you. You also have to consider applying to employers that you're targeting, even if they don't have openings published. So if you have a dream employer, in your research you stumble on, and you think like, wow, this is who I want to work for, you absolutely need to try to approach folks who work in that organization. Could be alums, could be recruiters, could be family friends. But again, that's going to be a hidden market, so that if someone says, hey, this person's been sending me information about themselves, and now we have an opening, and I think they'd be a really good fit. Tip number 9, leverage and build your strengths. What does that mean? If you have to leverage your skills is if you are really strong in your written communication skills, then within your search, you want to emphasize cover letters, written LinkedIn requests, and email communication as your communication method within your job search. If that's not your area of strength, the strong verbal communication skills is where you're at. Hey, you could sell ice to an Eskimo, emphasize phone and face-to-face conversations so that you can really leverage your best skills within your search. You also need to, the other half of this, is engage in activities that continue to develop your strengths or build new strengths, okay? So things that you're doing outside of your job search and work activities, think about how you can engage in things that will build a new skill and really show an employer that you are resilient, you're a problem solver, you're sort of thinking all the time about how you can improve. A very fair question for a lot of employers will be, so what have you been doing during this COVID-19 stay-at-home order? And if you can say, hey, I learned how to do this new thing I've been thinking about for years. I read 5 books. Whatever it might be for you, you just want to let that employer know that you've made the most and best use of that time. Finally, tip number 10, please work with a career counselor. This is a benefit that you have as an alum of the university. You have lifetime free services from the Career Development Center. And we want you to take your search from the general, this workshop, to the specific. What are your goals? You need to develop a job search plan that leverages your best skills and uses the resources available to you. And meeting with a career counselor can be so helpful just in talking to someone about who you are, what you're trying to do, so that, again, we're not just saying, hey, look at our website and follow these instructions, but rather, we now know who you are, what you're trying to achieve. Let's put a plan in place. We want you to start now. Okay, the reality is that in May, there are a lot of people who have just gone on to unemployment. In 8 weeks, when those resources run out, they're going to be entering the job market, and you do not want to be entering with the herds. Okay, so start the search now. Give yourself a week or so off if you need that still, but absolutely jump in feet first, and we recommend that you schedule an appointment on Handshake. So thanks so much for listening. Hopefully this was helpful, and we hope to see you in the Career Development Center soon.